to the U.S. Media, these lying whores, as we call them, is on the verge of taking over Iran. Over here, the BBC, who've been running the revolution in Iran, have made no mention that Mousavi is about to take over Iran, and in fact, it seems that the Guardian Council of Iran have declared that the British embassy was running the coup in Iran. Their chief political analyst still appears to be in jail. No one's mentioned him for a few days, but he was a political analyst run by the British embassy, an Iranian who was running the coup. And of course, Ahmadinejad has been backed by the Guardian Council and Khomeini, but according, I'm told by a U.S. contact, all the U.S. press is going on that Mousavi day by day is coming closer to ousting Ahmadinejad. So it seems that the American media is on angel dust. Cloud Cuckoo Land, or is just criminally insane, like the Zionists. Oh, sorry, they're owned by Zionists, aren't they? And of course, just to prove the point that the media is totally untrustworthy, we have Rupert Murdoch, the Zionist king of media in Britain, who's had to pay over £1 million in damages on the quiet to people who he's been bugging. His journalists have been going around listening to the telephone conversations of the royal family, the government, and anyone of any great importance. And the police, of course, have covered this up and are protecting Rupert Murdoch for some reason. I don't know why. But we come back to the colour green, which, of course, is the most important colour on the planet at the moment, because, of course, we've got global warming and the green movement. And, of course, we've got the most protected place on Earth, the green zone in the so-called liberated Iraq.
Yeah, don't forget greenbacks, too.
Exactly, greenback of the dollar. Now, we go back to Egyptian times, where we talked program last about what collapses quantum wave functions. For a mathematical physicist, all of reality is a quantum wave function, a quantum field which is collapsed because they say an observer observes, awareness can collapse quantum wave functions, but mathematically you're going from U, which is the quantum wave function, to R, which is the measured real world, and there is no mathematics to explain why. But the Egyptians had the technology to collapse quantum wave functions, which of course would allow them to do something called magic. And we have three main types of hyperinfinity. This is the mathematical set of axioms and operators that collapse quantum wave functions, which is unknown to mathematical physicists, but well known to occultists. And there are three different types of hyperinfinity. There's one denoted by the color green, there's one denoted by the color white, and there's one denoted by the color red. This forms the three colors of the Abraham ritual, which is the core occult principles of the Rothschilds and the Illuminati Zionists. And that's on my website, supernaturalspirit.com, under Abraham Ritual, or you can go to mindovermatter.ru, supernaturalspirit.com subsection, Abraham Ritual. And there you'll see it's fully documented. And what you'll see is that it's a complex system of awareness which actually has rules. And we have basically three types of hyperinfinity that collapse quantum wave functions. And the green hyperinfinity is to do with the chlorophyll in plants, based upon the manganese in the chlorophyll. And this green hyperinfinity has been used by the British since Elizabethan times to collapse reality to produce the British Empire. Well, how was that done? It was done by the massive logging of trees in Britain, and that was then taken over by the Rothschild corporations, and now they're logging on a massive scale in a place called Brazil, and all the trees that are chopped down All their hyperinfinity is used for the magic of the Rothschilds in the green line of the Abraham ritual. This was the magic used on Iran in order to make Mousavi take over Iran and bring a Zionist Iran with Mousavi and his backer Rafsanjani.
All right, we have to pause on that note, Tim.
Into power.
I got it. Okay. The butcher of Beirut, Mousavi, is apparently still kicking around, as they say. I'll be right back in just a couple with Tim. All right, we're back. Talking with Tim Rifat about black magic and all kinds of things that go back to the dawn of humankind. Go ahead, Tim.
So we find that the green line of the Abraham ritual is used by occultists of the Zionist predilection, is used for bloodless coups because green is the hyperinfinity from trees, and we actually kill the trees in order to produce the hyperinfinity, so we don't need to butcher people. And in fact, this hyperinfinity was known to the Egyptians as the hyperinfinity used for Djed, which is D-J-E-D, which allowed their Psi Masters to travel into the lower dimensions of the dark energy matter beings. So, of course, this is the hyperinfinity of supernatural spirits, and it gets the population targeted to have a velvet revolution, which actually brings their entire country under your power. This green line hyperinfinity sequestration was used on a country or an empire called the USSR, and the first use of it on a strategic scale was in Brighton in 1981, when Margaret Thatcher was under tremendous pressure from the British population, who were rioting. We had miners' strikes, and of course MI6 Occult branch were asked to use this green line occult ritual to turn the population into accepting authority and becoming the mindless slave zombies that we find the British population are now. What might seem strange to an American is that the British were very, very militant. We had lots of strikes. We had lots of rioting. The miners were having open warfare with the police. But after this ritual was carried out, which was finally completed in 1987, when what happened was that a giant storm was invoked, came through Brighton, and basically destroyed most of the trees in the south of England, which of course gave the hyperinfinity to complete the ritual, which was then added to by harmonic convergence and all the New Age tree huggers around the world, feeding into this archetypal ritual, which then caused a velvet revolution in the USSR. And as you well know, the collapse of the USSR was incredibly bloodless. You can imagine an empire of that power and magnitude, and we didn't have thousands and thousands and thousands of people dead on the street.
Correct.
I, of course, was at the core of this green line ritual. Therefore, I could basically, since I still live in Brighton, and I've grown now in power, I'm nearly 52 years of age, and I've taken over all the knowledge I didn't know when I was young, and just a super psychic who could see all these energies. I could basically sequester it and make sure that the Rothschilds' green line occult ritual to take over Iran failed. And if you want to read about all that stuff, just have a look on the website. Now, that meant that the Rothschilds, who were desperate to take over Iran, were left with only two of the lines left, the white line and the red line. And now they went next to the white line, which is the white form of hyperinfinity, which comes from bones and the dead, and basically the so-called souls of dead people And of course, in order to open a gateway to the world of the dead, you need a necromantic alchemical marriage.